That's probably not HR approved, however.
Well, I'm gonna have the first few things on mine, and then we're gonna have to move it. Because I have to
Because
leave
you're
it.
leaving, that's right, so I'll pull mine up over here.
We'll have to plug this back in there.
Nothing.
Or go to sleep or something, what happened to me?
How are you? I'm well. How are you? I guess that's probably the best way to. We're all hanging in, right? Still.
Can't tell an earring, they're souped. I got nothing. Oh, there we go, it came up. Gordon, password me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I told my
No, remind me tomorrow.
Then let's not look at each other.
If you want to, I told him you might want us to sit up here, I didn't know.
But I am honestly so sorry.
Well, I don't have to sit up here, you know.
There will be reasons for it that I have yet to discover. Absolutely. I agree with that. It's all good.
Oh,
Yeah.
what's her name? Shaylee?
He's in a race with his, seems to be the most boring. So we're gonna do He did traffic studies in the last
I'm
meeting.
just hoping that I don't go into a coughing fit again. I've been.
Have you got lost?
Did you see me grab one? Like
I know.
I was.
You know what? I am. We went down to visit over the weekend our little granddaughter.
Here's my bag.
And she left me with
Oh,
a
did
little
she?
prize.
Thank you.
Because I am.
Give me a little present. Craig, you need lozenges too?
No.
No.
As long as I got my water.
That little tickly cough going on. I don't know. I'm like.
Yeah. You know what it is? The air. I think the
Oh, I
air
think
is.
you're right.
I think the air is
I bet
what's
you're
doing it.
right.
Because I never had a problem if I flew back in here.
My throat's been kind of scratchy
That
because
makes
I've been
total sense. Yeah, I went and walked 7 miles today, so I'm thinking that probably, now that you
You're not
mention that.
supposed to be outside. They had
Yeah,
red.
well,
They had
I
warning.
have to exercise.
I
It was
know.
like
I have to
redder
too.
than red. It was dark red.
Yeah.
I
They
did wear
said
my
do not
balaclava,
go
you know, the one
outside.
that's like the whole mask with just the eyes cut out, so I did have something on my nose. But I bet you're right.
Did you have anybody raise their hand?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I did. My husband did remark to me. He's like, I think people might mistake you as a bank robber. I'm like,
Hey,
well, there is
I
that.
went to the thing recital. Your two little kids did very good.
Oh, thank you. I wish I
did.
could have been there. I
They
wish I
did.
could be to my son's tonight. He's
Very good
at
job.
Harriman High tonight performing, and I can't be there either.
They did a very good job.
You see me take off anyway. That might be why.
How are you?
Oh.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Jackie, if you're.
Jared, I'm ready.
I don't know. We've got 3. We can do this renewal agency.
Okay.
How are you, John? Good to see you. We haven't seen you forever.
Really nice facilities.
Good to see you.
That's
Yes.
great. Good to see you.
Good evening. Great.
Jonathan.
How's it been? Oh, good. I've been, going a little grizzly lately.
What are you going to do when you have to shave it off?
Freeze.
Freezing.
I can have it till January
I was
6th.
going to say it's mid-January.
January 16th at 0600, yeah. So
That's
middle of
awesome.
January, I'll shave it off
And
and
when
I'll
do they have a
freeze.
certain time? That's
Oh,
hilarious.
600, yeah.
Oh, 600.
Yep.
It's got to
So
come off.
I'm thinking about calling sick that day so I can keep the next day.
One more day just to squeeze it out of him. That's awesome.
How are you?
Is this it for you?
Yep, it is.
We just reduced the
Good.
area.
Hi, Corey. Good to see you.
Okay, I think we're going to get started, everyone. So there's no confusion. We're starting a little bit before 7, and that's due to the fact that we're having a special community development and renewal agency meeting prior to our regular city council meeting. So We have a quorum present. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'll accept a motion to have the minutes of December 13, 2017 approved.
Mayor, I'll motion to have the minutes of December 13th, 2017 be prepared and distributed to each member of the Redevelopment Agency Board. The board will have 10 days to review the minutes and submit any changes to the secretary. If after 10 days there are no changes, the minutes will stand approved. If there are changes, the process will be followed until all changes are made and the board is in agreement.
Okay, I have a motion on that item.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item. I heard it from the back. Oh, there it is. Sorry, Jared, we got going. 2.1, discussion consideration of a resolution appointing a secretary. John?
So with the leaving of our secretary, we have to appoint a new secretary. And that's the resolution to appoint a new secretary.
And that is, do we have,
It's Jackie.
okay?
So she gets to be the city recorder and the secretary.
Of the, okay.
Do we need an assistant secretary or just do it as stated presently? John would love to. John, what is your recommendation?
Probably be a good idea to have somebody, if she's not available, to sign, do whatever needs to be done.
All right. Yes.
What an
That
idea.
would be also my recommendation. Mayor, I will motion to approve Resolution R 2017-13, appointing a secretary. That will be Jackie Nostrom, secretary, and an assistant secretary, Wendy Thorpe.
Second.
Motion is second. We'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Item 2.2, discussion consideration of a resolution approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Central Utah Water Conservancy District for the Harriman Anthem Community Reinvestment Project area. No,
Okay,
Heather?
you've done numerous of these before for the Harriman Anthem Community Development Area. This is just the last one. They lagged behind everybody else, and so this is an approval of the interlocal.
Okay. I'll accept a motion.
A motion to approve Resolution R 2017-14, approving the interlocal cooperative agreement with Central Utah Water Conservancy District for the Harriman Anthem Community Reinvestment Project area.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. 2.3, discussion consideration of a resolution amending the Harriman Business Center project area plan and budget.
So this is to modify the boundaries of the Harriman Business Center. We've reduced the boundaries so that some residential could go in there, and the next item will be an amendment to the interlocal cooperative agreement with the county to reflect. So the county had some requirements in their interlocal, so this plan is to comply with that, and then we're going to amend the interlocal on the next item. And then also at the city council meeting, there's an ordinance approving this project area plan and budget.
Mayor, would you like a motion?
Yes.
I will motion to approve Resolution R 2017-15, approving and adopting the amended Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan for the Harriman Business Center project area.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on this issue? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. The final item in 2.4, discussion and consideration of an interlocal cooperative agreement with Salt Lake County for the Harriman Business Center Community Development Project area.
So this is to amend the interlocal we had with the county to reflect the change you just approved in the project area plan.
I'll motion to approve Resolution R 2017-16, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Salt Lake County for the Harriman Business Center Community Development Project area.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries. I'll accept a motion now to adjourn our Community Development and Renewal Agency meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we are closed and adjourned for that particular segment. We'll now go into our regular scheduled city council meeting. We wish to recognize all members of the city council with the exception of Nicole Martin, who is not able to join us this evening, and so we appreciate everyone in attendance today. We'll begin by a pledge of allegiance by Shaylee Olson. If she'll come forward and lead us in that pledge, please.
So if everyone can rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Shaylee. I want to just recognize, I think do we have any scouts here tonight? Or I see one there. Would you like to stand up and introduce yourself? Great. What troop again? That's why it's on your sleeve, so you don't forget, right? Yeah. All right, good. Well, great. It's good to have you, young man. Oh, do you want to state your name? Great. It's great to have both of you. You got your leader here. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Anyone else? I see another young man back in the back there. Would you like to stand up? Are you here for a merit badge too? You just didn't have anything going on tonight. You say. All right, good. All right. It's good to have everyone here tonight with us. Okay, our disclosure for conflict of interest. Are there any items that would pose a conflict of interest on our agenda tonight by council?
No, Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to council comments and recognitions. Are there any?
I would maybe like to make a quick comment, though, and in regards to 7.7, there may be some people in the audience that are here to may want to speak to that or may make some type of comment on that. I would make a recommendation or request that when we get to that item, we discuss it and then we open it up for public comment, possibly on that item. Would that be okay with the rest of the council?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Are there any others? I wanted to recognize Alan and Tammy. They have just been awarded a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. So we commend them for their wonderful work, and that's not an easy award to win, and so we appreciate them and recognize the efforts they've made. I just want to also mention, attended the Bastion Elementary dedication a month ago. It's been a while, but just wanted to recognize the Bastion sisters who donated that property for the elementary school, and appreciate Emily and Mary's contribution. And I'm sure Dave, in his absence, would have also wanted to be recognized for his wonderful efforts in providing that facility for further education. Okay. Seeing none, we'll go into our public comment portion of our meeting. Audience members may bring any item to the mayor and council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. So at this time, we'll open our public comment portion of our meeting. And if you'll come forward, if you would be kind enough to state your name for public record.
Mayor-elect David Watts. So I just wanted to take a moment, as this is the last city council meeting that we will have 3 of the members of our council here. I want to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude for what you've done for the city and for the efforts that you've put in as we look towards the future and the new council coming in January. But the 3 of you, Councilwoman Mosier, Mayor Freeman, and Councilman Tishner, have, I honestly believe, done everything you can to do what you feel is right for our city. You've put us in a great place that we will be able to move forward with and continue to grow and develop. And I just wanted to make sure that I had publicly expressed my appreciation for everything that you guys have done. Thank you very much, and we wish you the best as you move forward with your, whatever option you choose to take moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your comments. I failed to recognize also, I think we have Sherry Orn, who is a council member-elect. Just want to recognize her too. So, and I don't know, did
Clint Smith is over to
Clint
the right.
Smith also? If you want to stand, Clint, please, and recognize he's also council-elect and will be assuming his position the first of the year too. So we appreciate both of these good people who have been elected and look forward to their leadership. Did you have a comment, Dave?
My name's Doug Young. I develop property in Harriman. I just want to say, you know, life's a little relay race, and you guys, Corley and the mayor and Craig, I'm going to miss all of you, really. And we haven't always agreed on everything. But one thing has really happened, I think, in the last few weeks, last month, is that with sometimes in conflict, we're able to kind of draw closer together. I really feel like that the residents have reached out. They've helped us to recognize a vision that we all enjoy, that we all love, and it wouldn't have been facilitated without each of you. And even though I may not see you at the council, I'm sure we'll see each other future in life, and you guys have run a strong race. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Clint Smith. I too wanted to take a moment on the record and express my thanks to the 3 outgoing council members. I've had the opportunity to work with all 3 of you in different capacities and very closely over the last several years. And I recognize that at times the position that you're in is very difficult and can be thankless. And I'm not really sure why I jumped into it to put myself through that same abuse. But that being said, I did not want to pass up the opportunity myself to express my appreciation to each of you for the time and the dedication that you have given our community. I think each of you have served admirably. I think you have each stood your ground on your beliefs and your principles and what you believe is best for the community. And I think at the end, as long as you can walk away and be able to say that, then I think you've been successful, and I think each of you have been successful in that role, and I think you've been great mentors and teachers to those of us who, again, crazy as it may be, have chosen to follow and to try and now move our community forward and continue that path forward. And I wish you all the very best. I hope that you don't think that this is a complete release from being involved in the community. We certainly still hope to see you around and involved in the many events and things that we have going on. But again, my sincere appreciation to each of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Clint.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Orn. I too wanted to add my thanks to you guys for all that you've done. Really, thanks a lot for all your help that you've given me to through this election process. I look forward to working with the citizens, and a lot of it is because of good examples that have shown a lot of professionalism. There's been a lot of discontent in our community recently, and a lot of it has been hurled your way. And you've responded and acted professionally to people who have been disheartened by processes, and so I appreciate that example, just your professionalism. And I just really thank you for your dedication and your service, because I agree with the comments. A lot of it is thankless service, but you have to do it because inside you want to serve your community, and I feel that when I'm around you. So thank you for all you've done, and thank you for your help in my own world. Thanks.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks, Sherry.
Well, as one who entered the fray of the political arena...
You state your name. Sorry, David.
David Howe. As one who entered the fray of the political arena in the spring and fall, I wanted to also express my appreciation to Mayor Freeman and Craig and Coralie. I have been amazed at the amount of, particularly Mayor, the grace and decorum in which you have led these meetings over these years. You are a model to be looked at and learned from. And Craig, I wanted to thank you for your insights and all the things you assisted me with, and Coralie, I appreciate all that you have brought to our community in the district in which I live and which you've served us well. So I say thank you to all of you, and I do look forward to continuing associations as the years pass by. Thank you.
Thanks, David. We'll go ahead and close our public comment. Oh. Emily, sorry, I got your comment form. What would you like? You want to comment on 7.7? Would you rather do it then? Yeah, that's fine. We'll wait then. That's fine. Well, let me just say something. We'll close our public comment portion of our meeting, but our 3 new council members, I have great confidence in their ability, and they're going to continue great work to help promote Harriman and make it such a wonderful and inviting place to live. So we commend them and look forward to learning much from their great leadership. We'll go to 3.1, City Council, Board, and Committee reports. Any would like to?
Yes. I'd like to report that the Unified Fire Authority meeting we actually had a Unified Fire Service Area taxation hearing last night. There was no decision made at that time, but we had a number of members of the public that came to express their thoughts on the tax increase proposed. We will have a board meeting on December 19th. That's this coming Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning, and we will take public comment as well prior to making a decision on the tax increase. Additionally, for the Youth Council, they were able to serve at the Night of Lights city event and had a great time serving there. We appreciate the youth for all that they do for our city. We had the youth attend court, and they were able to observe a couple of cases, and then were able to speak with Judge Farr as well as the prosecutor about their job and responsibilities. They will meet tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. They'll be conducting a service project in January, and that will be a food drive and a dance. So the food will be collected throughout the community within the next couple of weeks, all the way through Valentine's Day, and then at the dance they will be asking for food for the admission for the dance. This will be a youth dance held here in City Hall on January 26th. That's a Friday evening. In addition, they will be receiving a presentation tomorrow from Unified Police Department's K-9 unit, so they're excited about that. So lots of activities with the youth, and we're just looking forward to concluding their 2017 tomorrow with their youth council meeting.
Thank you, Holly. If I could just take a minute. At a COM meeting recently, and I'm sure our city does this, we had a report on graffiti, and they had mentioned that any graffiti that's reported, you could report it to the Metro Gang unit. That helps them to monitor gang activity and if they're migrating into certain communities. So just mention that to our city manager and other staff if we could. I'm hopeful we're doing that. If not, we need to facilitate that information so that that's an important part of our community and making certain that gang activity is controlled and monitored. Wanted to also mention that last Friday, I was not able to do. I did it by phone. We had a corridor
preservation meeting.
Okay, it's easy for you to say. But the city was awarded $1.1 million in that, and I want to commend staff for their preparation and their presentation. And that money will be used, I think. Gordon, you want to talk a little bit about what road that will impact?
Yeah, so they're building the new high school in Harriman off of Autumn Crest, and so this is a road that will connect to 134th from Autumn Crest over, and this will allow for better access, so students don't have to go along Mountain View Corridor to go into the high school. It gives it's a great safety measure, and so the state has helped us out in this corridor preservation, helps us buy the right-of-way, and it's part of the budget amendment tonight, so we'll talk about that.
If I could make any plea, and I guess this is Mayor-elect Watts, that this is an important committee to be on because we are going to be in line with roads and infrastructure in our city. And we have been very successful, and it's a compliment to our staff. I don't think I've gone to one of the meetings where we haven't gotten money, because we certainly are qualifying in terms of our city and the growth we're having and the need for roads. And so I'd encourage that we have an elected official on that board, because it will be very influential in getting the funding that the city needs. So, okay, we'll go on to item 4.1, results of the Harriman City General Plan referendum. Jackie?
Mayor and Council, I'm happy to report on the 2025 Harriman City General Plan referendum efforts. The signatures that were needed throughout Harriman City totaled 4,327 signatures, and the total number of validated signatures we received was 4,462. So the referendum is deemed sufficient. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I want to take a minute and just compliment those who were involved in the referendum process. It was a difficult and arduous task, and I just want to compliment them for the good work they've done. And it's wonderful, and I just want to tell these young men, this is part of why we live in America, that we have a chance to openly speak and function and have those freedoms that we have. And the referendum process is part of the freedoms we enjoy. And I just want to compliment those who, I know it's a big job to get that many signatures, so compliment them for their efforts.
Yes, I did notice that Emily is here in the audience, and I did a formal certificate for them saying it was deemed sufficient, so I just would like to present her with that because you're here. Thank you so much for all of you.
This is my Christmas present.
Thank you.
Jared, I think you wanted to chat or make.
First, I think we need to acknowledge the amount of time Jackie had to put into. I think we need to acknowledge the amount of time Jackie's put into these efforts as well, both at the beginning of the process and at the end. She had to go through and verify all of those signatures. But I've been asked to touch base, maybe piggyback on what the mayor said a little bit. It's part of our process in this country, which is fantastic. But I think the big question for the public going forward, it's been the question we've all had in the ensuing weeks, is what's the process going forward? What's the procedure? So I'm going to attempt to put it in layman's terms as I understand it. So if I'm wrong, John, correct me, Gordon, Bryn. Now it's been that the referendum's been deemed sufficient, normally that item would not go into effect until or if it's voted on. Normally the process requires that it be on the next municipal election, which would be November of 2019, unless the city council votes to have a special election before then, at which point that earliest date would be June 26th. However, and this is the point that I think we want to make sure we message properly to the public, the ordinance that the referendum was on had a condition that if a development agreement on what's referred to as the 900 acres was not reached by December 31st of 2017, the general plan itself would revert to the what we're referring to as the 2014 plan. So our legal counsel has walked us through several kind of cases setting precedent that they think applies to this case, which if the council does nothing, we don't anticipate there being a development agreement. I don't see any way that being done. The general plan automatically reverts to the 2014 plan, which accomplishes the purpose of the referendum, which the legal term that I've learned, that I've come to enjoy the last week or so, is that it renders basically the point moot. There's a mootness we've talked about, which means that the result of the referendum was deemed sufficient. It accomplished what it needed to, and by virtue of that condition that was placed on the ordinance, there not being a development agreement, it's the same result. So we don't, at this point, anticipate having an actual vote. the same result was accomplished, which means now, beginning in January, again, this is hard to kind of put into words as we've went through this tonight. What we anticipate the process being is the new council really needs to decide what the process will be, but going forward, effective January 1st, the city will be operating on the 2014 plan. So any development coming into the city will be subject to that plan. As we then continue to work towards a new general plan, we do have to amend that plan to accommodate areas that have been annexed into the city, as well as other zoning changes that have been made over the last few years where it needs to be changed. So we do have to amend that plan. We're not stuck with it, but we're going to need to start that process again. So notices, public notices will be made. We'll be including the public in that. We'll be including the group, the referendum, we call it the referendum group, Harriman for Responsible Growth. We'll do our best to notice those things and make sure that the public's involved in that process. But we also want to make clear, at least I feel there's been a little bit of confusion that even the referendum itself would put a moratorium on building in the city, and that's not the case. Even if we were to have a vote at some future date, building would still continue. Things still fall under the plan that could continue. In this case, that will continue to be the case. So people should still expect to see new permits being issued, et cetera. It's just that as far as the general plan is concerned, we start that process over and work towards those agreements. Does that kind of satisfy most of the things that we talked about? So I hope that helps. I just encourage the public, if they have questions about the process or anything, please let us know. Email us, give us a phone call the planning department. We're going to do our best to message this in all the various channels that we have and make sure that we communicate well with the public.
I might just mention too, on January 3rd, the time I don't think has been presented, that they will be meeting the Planning Commission and the new City Council to formulate plans to start the process moving forward. And so, and in that process, certainly everyone's welcome to come and attend and be, we hope, engaged in that process, so they can have a voice in that. They won't have it at that meeting, but they should be there to at least hear. Then there'll be subsequent open houses and other meetings that will allow public input in terms of what has been discussed and presented for what. Is that correct? Okay.
I'd like to highlight something as well. The contingency in the adoption of the general plan required that the City Council approve a development agreement before December 31st. And I want to underscore that it was, I believe, the direct effort of the citizen referendum group and the public's interest and concern about this general plan that it caused the council to not take that action and to not adopt a master development agreement. So that is what has now triggered the reversal of that 2017 plan. So again, I want to underscore that the citizen engagement on this issue absolutely had an effect on the reversal. It wasn't just that it died. It could have been accomplished prior to the end of the year, but the citizen engagement on the issue caused the council to move in this direction. So again, to underscore for the public that your efforts were not unnoticed and the referendum was successful in its intent.
Yeah, I would agree. It definitely contributed to where we're at moving forward.
Okay, we'll go on to item 4.2, Unified Police Department Precinct Presentation. Chief Carr.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Over the last several months, Harriman Precinct detectives, school resource officers partnered with Zero Fatalities and select key students at Harriman High, Providence Hall High. Their mission was to prepare and present a large-scale mock crash for the students of both high schools. As this team conceptualized the project, they truly believed they had the building blocks for a good educational experience that would be informational, perhaps cause some level of pause for thought amongst our community's youngest drivers. What ultimately came of this was more, much more. More impact, more teaching, more learning, and more understanding, more conversation, and hopefully more healing. Admittedly, I am not able to adequately honor in words the hundreds of hours of work and dedication by our city staff, officers, and students, nor shall I try. What you will experience next is hard to watch, but gives a humbling context of the amazing work performed every minute by the brave men and women of this country's public safety entities. Moreover, it will chronicle the collateral damage to the lives of those affected when someone's thoughtless actions impact all of the facets of the community left to somehow find understanding. Alan, if you'd play our video for us.
Are those, can we get, oh, there we go.
I know you've had a crush on her since like the 6th grade. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do anything to embarrass you.
Whoa, what are you doing? Where'd you get that beer? Whoa, dude, you're way out of your lane. Just pull over and let me drive.
Calm down. Joel's house is only a few more minutes away.
My phone's almost dead. Do you guys have a
It
charger?
looks to be going,
I might have
doesn't it?
taken it out, but Ugh, I can't reach it. This stupid seatbelt's in my way. Okay, hold on. Evan.
Is the sound up on that, Alan? Down on the player.
I know you've had a crush on her since like the 6th grade. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do anything to embarrass you.
Whoa, what are you doing? Where'd you get that beer? Whoa, dude, you're way out of your lane. Just pull over and let me drive.
Calm down. Joel's house is only a few.
Deep breath. I've got help on the way there.
And let her know that we're close. Evan, look out!
You're all over my pants. Not cool, man. Pull over.
I thought once we moved in here, we were gonna have these problems. Brand new stuff.
Blake, it's only like only a few more minutes away.
My phone's almost dead. Do you guys have a charger? I might have taken it out, but it's probably just...
I know you've had a crush.
Should I narrate?
Yeah, why don't you just go ahead while we're trying to get this done?
And I apologize, we did play this beforehand.
Hold on. Evan, you just ran a red light. I'm pretty sure it was just yellow.
So what we did was we created
See
a
how
video.
close that car was?
Seriously, dude, you
And
just
I really wish
spilled
you
beer
could see,
all
'cause
over my
that's
pants.
our-
Not cool, man.
our
Pull
website.
over,
We
I'm
will get
walking.
it sent
Calm
out
down,
on the
Blake.
website for sure. So
Sounding like
what
my
came
mom.
from that was a learning experience.
Did we decide to stop for food? Abby said she wants
Interacted with
Chick-fil-A
us
before the
as we
movie,
got
so
the
I'm just gonna
program
text her
going,
real quick.
But also the
and let her know.
students from 2 schools, Providence Hall and Harriman High School. Here we go.
Unified Police Department, this is Tracy.
I need to report an accident. I need help, like, quick.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
We'll let it play
I'm
through.
at Harriman High
And what
School.
we
Do you know
chronicle
the address
here
there?
is someone who's been
I
drinking and
don't know
driving
off the
and
top of my
somebody
head.
who was,
I'm going to get some help
otherwise
started that way.
not
How many
watching
people are
what
hurt?
was going with
There's 3 people on the ground. It looks like there's people in the car. They're bleeding real a lot, and I
That's fine.
don't know.
Just take a deep breath. I've got help on the way there.
During this event, we brought in an actual air ambulance. We brought in these cars, as you can see, that were donated to us by Doug Smith Auto Complex. And we brought in the fire department. They actually extricated the kids from the car while we watched. And I know some of you were there, and I hope it had the same impact on you that it did me. It was very hard to watch. It's still very hard to talk about to some extent. You'll see that this young lady was transported to the hospital and there was another fatality. But what's very interesting is anybody can do this. This isn't that hard to do. It's time consuming, but it isn't terribly hard to do.
I was careless. I looked away for a second, and it's well beyond unbearable.
I'd give anything to switch places with them. Why would I even get myself a beer in the first place?
It was laid out, and parents had to come and give the last remarks to their children that were killed in this accident.
Our beautiful daughter, Mallory, was killed in a careless moment. Less than a mile from our home, a series of faulty decisions stole her life from us forever.
As a father, there couldn't be anything worse for a parent to take part in the death of a child. Please take today as a legitimate warning and pleading from us as parents and family to drive safely and without distraction.
We learned in there that was definitely the most impactful piece to everything. The students, I don't know that there were many people that weren't crying during that event, to be honest with you. And what was interesting is the parents that were giving, in some cases, the obituary.
I wish that I had a time
They knew
machine.
their child was alive. They knew that
to go back and tell myself to never get in that car with alcohol. Tell myself I'd be an idiot if I did.
We went on through this program.
Or at least warn everyone else that night
do some filming in
to
jail.
not get in the car with me.
Down to the jail, and we chronicled their life of what it was like to be
I
incarcerated. And we'll get to that point.
Ask myself why I escaped.
Alan, if you want to jump forward.
Alive with hardly a scratch on my head to a friend.
May 3rd, 2001, I was killed in a car accident on October 11th, 2017. I was born in California and moved to my new home in Utah when I was 9 years old with my parents and my 4 sisters. I was a junior at Harriman High School. I was planning to continue playing football, basketball, and track for the high school teams, and planning on having great seasons. But because of this terrible accident, I will never...
Strangers you are passing on the road. Is it worth relieving yourself of the slight discomfort of a strap across your chest? Or that single No. It takes 1 second of distraction, or a second of being unfocused, and everything in your life will have changed. That split second takes you from a routine drive to months of pain and mourning with the knowledge that someone is not going home. A friend in the passenger seat, or someone in the car that you crashed into. All because it has a chance and a role to avoid a situation that can result as badly as this one did. I could have done more. Don't make the same mistake I did.
Decisions took it all away from me. My decision took away my life, saved their life. My advice, do it now, because you never know when later will become never.
We want people to share this message, and it's strong, and it's just too bad this is not working for us tonight because...
It's hard to say that I'm lucky when I've hurt so many of my friends and family.
That's right.
The guilt is overbearing. I could hardly sleep at night knowing that it was my stupid decisions that contributed to the accident. My mom and dad always said, "Keaton, we're so proud of you and the person that you're becoming. But because I'd rather have fun with friends and be responsible..."
Stand here with me because you knew you weren't in jail that night and you weren't going to be there for the evening, and this was an act, but how did it affect you personally as we watched this? I can see the fear in your eyes as that door shut.
I was 3 years old when I burst into tears upon noticing that my dad was trimming the backyard tree. With giant shears, he snipped away at the excess branches, and I couldn't bear it. In the years since, with matters well beyond cutting trees, I've made myself a promise. A promise that I would do my best to never hurt someone, and when I inevitably did, I would do my best to fix it. When I got in that car, I was careless. I looked away for a second, beyond hurtful, and it's well beyond unbearable.
And really at the end, we sum it up with these text boxes that we're asking that this will be played in future classrooms, on our websites, and all those places, and go through that messaging. And I can tell you that there was so much work that went into this, and there's no way I can put words. So I would like to turn the time over now to now Sergeant Cynthia Archuleta. We are super sad because she's leaving us. She got promoted to sergeant and she'll be leaving Harriman High.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's definitely impact. Come on up. And Mike Larson, who was a school resource officer at Providence Hall, equally as important, but didn't get promoted, so he gets to stay.
I'm staying. I'm staying.
They have brought with them their students, and I'll turn the time over to them. That they have some things here that they'd like to present to the students. Maybe if we could get a picture. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. You guys want to come up? Mallory and Shay and Evan, Jern.
So not all of our students are here today, but we'd like to recognize a few that are here. Mallory Adamson, Evan Noble, Jaren Hancock, and Shaylee Olson. Also Keaton Woodard participated, and
Austin Douglas.
And Blake Freeland. So this obviously was a super important and powerful message here in Harriman. We're so appreciative to everybody that helped contribute and participate in this important message. But the main players that made this whole project possible are these kids that are here today. So it was very important to us to recognize them publicly here at Harriman City Council meeting tonight. So, Mike, go ahead.
So we have this little, basically a little certificate for each of our students that basically as a recognition that they can give out and put in their resumes. So, Mallory. We also gave them a little token of our appreciation, a little UPD coin that we don't give out to everyone. But, you know, we thought that that would be a great little token that they could put as a memento for this occasion. So we want to thank these guys. They did an awesome job. And their parents.
The video is uploaded to the Unified Police Department of Greater Salt Lake's Facebook page. So if you want to watch the full version with audio, it is there. And it's an amazing message. We're so grateful. So thank you, everybody, for listening to us and for participating. Thank you.
And we are going to preview it at Star Wars on Friday for Providence Hall. So if you guys want to come to Star Wars.
I was just going to say, too, this mock crash, it really gets it's really an honor to have this come to your school. I mean, it rotates around the different high schools. So
it does, and we're not through with our message. Every year we intend to take this message and give it. This is part of our program now. This is about you guys. I'm ecstatic about this.
Oh, so you're in it after all.
And again, I want to thank the City Council. This couldn't have been done without your support. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
if I could just say something also, you know, this was very impactful, you know, from the student level, but I know when I went to it, I gained a greater appreciation for fire and police, and they're having to deal with these issues. It's not an easy thing. In fact, I talked to Chief Carr about it, and emotionally, I'm sure, particularly when you're dealing with young people and coming across an accident, dealing with hysterical parents, having to go and say your child's been killed, that's to me, I gained a greater love and appreciation for fire and police and the great work they do in our community, and having to deal with these very emotional issues is very challenging. And so I wanted to express our appreciation for the good things that you do in our community, and the compassion and understanding that you demonstrate in so many ways when these are very sensitive issues. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Now go to item 4.3, introduction of city planner. Travis?
So even though Human Resources does a lot of recruiting, put a lot of time behind these positions, I want to bring Gordon up here because ultimately he's a decision maker, and we're excited about our new hire in Mike Malloy. But I want Gordon to come up real quick and just say the experience that Mike has and what he brings to the city and our excitement behind that.
You know me, I try to avoid talking at all costs. Mike Malloy and I first worked together in Taylorsville. He was a planner there and I was a city engineer. We worked for a couple years and then he quit and he went to Salt Lake City. I had just quit Salt Lake City and come to Taylorsville and he went the other way. But he is fantastic, brings a wealth of knowledge. He teaches up at the University of Utah. He has a real love of planning, and it's kind of the passion that he has, and so it's going to be great for our community. Do you want to say anything, Mike? You ought to be embarrassed. Come on.
I'll have you know that when Gordon was recruiting me, he fully disclosed the challenges and opportunities that you were facing as a community. And I asked Gordon, I said, now why do I want to be a part of this? And he said, because it's fun. And so I am looking forward to having great experiences with this community. I want you to know that I bring an attitude, yes, I love planning. When I interviewed with Brett and several members of the senior staff, I mentioned that I believe in planning. I believe that planning works when it's properly applied. I worked with a 150 lot rezone in Salt Lake City where initially a citizens committee approached me and I thought this is not going to work, it's not going to happen. But when I applied the planning principles that I believe in, I did a 180 and completely agreed with the community group that approached the city and supported their request and saw that the largest rezone that I've saw processed in Salt Lake City's history since I've been there in the last 11 years, and I was very proud to be a part of that. And again, that was a response to a citizens committee. I believe that you are the experts, not me. I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you advice, to work with our existing staff, but you know your community, and I'm here to learn from you and to help you. So I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Welcome, Mike. It's good to have you here with us.
Thank you.
You do have a good person. I know Bryn has done a wonderful job, and we appreciate her wonderful efforts. And both of you, I'm sure, are going to contribute greatly to our city. Item 4.4, appointment of a deputy city recorder. Jackie?
Mayor and Council, I am happy to actually report. We've gone through the interview process to fill the vacation of the deputy city recorder position, and after thorough interviews and skills test, I would like to recommend approval of the resolution appointing Wendy Thorpe as our deputy city recorder.
Congratulations, Wendy.
If you want to tell them a little bit about you.
Sure.
You've been here how long? A year and a half, Wendy? How long?
I've been here about a year and a half.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was 8 years with the District Attorney's Office, and prior to that, 8 years with the State Tax Commission. So I'm very, very happy to have this opportunity and to be here at Harriman.
Wonderful.
And to move on to this position.
Right.
We're thrilled
to
have
I'm,
you.
I'm always excited to see advancement within the organization too, so it's exciting that this opportunity comes to you. Anything else, Jackie? Just a resolution? I just need a resolution to approve this action?
Yeah, and then after it is approved, or if it's not approved, we'll conduct the oath of office here.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll make a motion then. Motion to approve resolution number R43-2017, appointing a deputy city recorder.
That'll be Wendy Thorpe.
Wendy Thorpe. Sorry, name wasn't on here.
And I'll second that.
Okay, if we have a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Curly?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Congratulations, Wendy. And then we'll turn it over for oath of office.
Raise your right hand.
Congratulations, Wendy. We'll now go on to 4.5, audit report for the 2016-17 Harriman City budget. Alan?
Blake tells me I have to make this as exciting as a traffic study. I'd just like to take a few minutes to kind of introduce the report that you're looking at so that you understand what we're accomplishing with this. First of all, page 14 is our audit report, and I'll let our auditor actually address that to you. But page 17, as you look at the table of contents, management discussion and analysis, that is my assessment of how well we did this year, going through and looking at the highs and the low points and discussing what I think are the important things of in the summary. So that might be a good place to start. It'll raise some questions. I would also like to mention that Tammy's group and my group are working on a popular annual financial report at the moment, which will try and put this more into layman's terms. We expect to have that done before the end of the year. So, middle of that now, so that's another source of summary information. When you do government accounting, you use different methods of accounting than you do, say, in a business. When we go through our financial statements and prepare our year end, one of the things that we have to do is take the government accounting, which is a modified accrual, and try to make it look like a business financial statement. So when you look at the government-wide financial statements, the statement of net position will be somewhat similar to what you would see in a normal business balance sheet. Statement of activities would be similar to your profit and loss statement. The fund accounting is what we normally account for government accounting, and so you'll first see the translation to an accrual basis, then you'll see the modified accrual in the funds, then you get to the water and you're back to the accrual basis. So we use a number of different methods of accounting. And if you're interested in it, page 31 and 34 gives a reconciliation between the two. But essentially, we don't keep track of any long-term liabilities or capital assets in fund accounting, and so we have to add those back to create the other statement. Yeah. In our required and supplemental information, we go through all of our budgets and compare them with what we actually did. I'll give you some insight of how we've done with our budgets. And then the statistical section, which starts on page 95, goes back and looks at how we've done this year compared to what we've done in the previous 10 years. So that statistical section takes all the different types of accounting we do here and compares them over a period of 10 years. So you can see trends and things that are happening with the city. A couple things I'd like to point out. For one, licenses and permits went way up this year. They amount to 43.5% of our revenue this year. It's about $2 million higher than it was a year ago. But one thing I'd like to show with that is that wasn't used for operations wholly. We took $2.5 million and transferred it to capital projects. We also increased our fund balance by $1,700,000 this year. So we had a little over $4.5 million of that $7 million we had in permits this year that we didn't use in operations. So that's a good thing to see. I know that it's a concern of the council to have that much in one-time money. We used the biggest percentage of it for one-time costs. And so that's something to look at in this. One other thing here is that our general fund balance now is at 24.5%. So we're right at the maximum allowable fund balance. As you know, we can't stockpile money for anything, and so we're limited on what we can save, and we're at the top level of what we can save at this point. Just one last thing before I turn some time over to Rob Wood, our auditor. If you look on the very last page, we did have a couple of findings this year that all three of these findings relate to construction projects that we were doing. Work that was budgeted in July was done in June, and so we went slightly over budget in roads and street signs. It also caused a temporary negative balance in our capital projects. All three of these findings were corrected in July once we started the new budget year. So with that, I'll turn over to Rob Wood, and he can tell you the name of his company because a whole bunch of names.
It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm a partner with Hanson, Bradshaw, Malmrose, and Erickson. It's a mouthful. We lose you kind of after Bradshaw. 2 names is enough. Pleasure to be serving the City Council and the City of Harriman again. As Alan mentioned, I mean, if you look at this document, it's about 140 pages long. So it takes a lot of time and effort to put a document of that size together and make sure that we've got all the information properly reported and properly recorded. In accordance with state law, we come in as your independent auditor and we look at the books and we interview people throughout the city. We talk with City Council. I know I had a conversation with Mayor Freeman on whether there was any concerns and so forth. So we do planning and find out is there certain areas that we need to drill into as a potential risk or fraud or whatnot that could be happening within the city to make sure that we're covered from an internal control standpoint and also from a financial reporting standpoint. So one of the things that Alan's already mentioned is we did have the 3 findings, all of them relatively minor, 2 budget overruns in the road impact fee fund, also in your street sign impact fee fund, and then you had a deficit fund balance in your debt service fund. So those are covered at the very last page in our schedule of findings and responses. As Alan has already mentioned, you've already corrected those in your new budget year in July of 2017, so they're not an issue anymore. But because of the technicalities of those, it's something that we had to issue. Going back to the financial statements. So on the financial statements in page 14 is our independent auditor report. This is the core of what your bondholders, banks, anybody else is looking at your financial statements. This is what they're going to want to see. I have to report that this independent auditor's report that we provide you on pages 14 through 16 is an unmodified opinion, or in layman's term, it's a clean opinion. It's the best opinion I, as an independent auditor, can give you as a city. We don't feel there is any material misstatements within any of the funds, in any of the entity-wide, so your governmental activities, your business activities, your major governmental funds, and also your major water fund. You only have one enterprise fund. Also the aggregate information for your other funds that aren't significant enough to report individually, but get lumped together in your top level financial statement. Also within this report is we take that information on those funds that are not significant individually and we put aggregate information. So we disaggregate that towards the back of the statement, and that's called supplemental information. We've reviewed each of those funds individually and also their budget to actual comparison schedules and feel that they are properly stated in relation to the financial statements as a whole. So that's really what the reports here say. In addition, because of the federal dollars that you've received, mainly in relation to the work that you were doing with Camp Williams in receiving of ACUB funds, we were required to audit you from a single audit, or from a single audit standpoint. So that's following government guidelines. And I don't choose what we're going to audit. The federal government puts out a compliance supplement package and they tell us the procedures that we need to follow. They also tell you when they give you the money, these are the procedures on what you can and cannot spend the money on, and the reports and so forth that you have to issue in that compliance. So as part of our audit of the city, we also performed those audits, and that individual report begins on page 127. It is also a clean opinion. With what we reviewed with that major federal program in your National Guard project, is we feel that you complied with all compliance requirements that the federal government has issued. You can see on page 129 that during this year you were awarded $4,056,100. You also spent that, so we've also reported those in your financial statements, no issues. The other two federal programs that you had is the Department of Housing and Urban Development with Community Development Block Grant funds. You also had funds from Homeland Security for a small, I believe, trailer type purchase. Those were not required to be reviewed by our office, but we do report those to say, here's all the federal dollars that you spent during the year. One of the other reports, I'll backtrack just a little bit. On page 125, we also give a report on your internal controls over compliance and your internal controls over financial reporting. Happy to report that we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in your internal control structure here at the city. So we review processes such as how our cash receipts handled at the city, how is payroll done, working with the HR department, Travis and his group. We also work with Shauna and Alan in reviewing how do you follow your procurement policies. We didn't find any deficiencies in the transactions that we reviewed. Now, obviously, we can't audit every single transaction, so there could be instances where you have management override, but the controls you have in place, as long as they're being followed, you've got good financial controls here at the city. So we've given you a clean opinion there, except for on the compliance issue, noting the two budgets that were over budget and the deficit fund balance. Those are your only two, per se, marks against you as a city. But other than that, the city's functioning very well. The last report that we do is required by the state auditor's office. It's your compliance with specific state laws that they would like us to test. So this is, the information that we tested is found on page 134. So some of the information that we test is how you handle your budgetary compliance and adopting a budget, amending budgets throughout the year, and then also following, are you staying within your budget in various departments? The other thing we look at is your justice court, your fund balance. I know Alan's already mentioned that. Your general fund balance is the fund that the state's most concerned with, and that probably has the most impact on you because that's the one you control the most because that's your operating fund. And you were at 24.5% of the state's maximum, so you're right on that threshold. Now, I have other cities that's above that threshold, but I commend you as a city for managing your funds very well. With this report, we really only just have the issues that have already been brought up. No other issues. The city's complying with everything that they need to do, and we feel there's no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that need to be reported besides the things that's already been mentioned. So with that, I'd leave it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Said a couple of things. I would like to recommend to our staff that the new council be given these booklets. They should have a copy of it.
They already have it.
They already got it? Got it. All right. The other thing too, I can't recall, I don't have it for last year. Was there any deficiencies last year? And if so, were those corrected in this current audit?
You had one deficiency last year. It was very similar to the two funds, the road impact fee and the street signs. Those were over budget. Last year you had, I don't remember the specific fund. I want to say it was the debt service fund was over budget. And the only reason that was over budget last year is you issued out a bond. Alan started off his presentation talking about, hey, there's a difference in the way fund accounting is done, and there's a difference in the way entity-wide, how most businesses would look at. I believe your overage, if I'm remembering right, Mayor Freeman, came from you issued out a bond. A fund statement will take all of that money that you receive for the bond, you record it not only as revenue, but you record the entire proceeds. I think it was a refunding bond, if I remember right. That refunding that goes to an escrow agent, even though the funds may not come into your account, that's a full-on expenditure for that same dollar amount. I think that's what caused your debt service fund to be over budget.
Or last year?
Or last year.
Okay.
So this year, you also had a bond refunding and a regular bond issuance, but those accounting and the budgets were properly picked up. So you implemented the finding from last year very well in your new bond issuances.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you so much. You always do a good job. I know you started When did you start? This is like 2 or 3 month process, isn't it?
We started in September. You've had a lot of activity going on here at the center with the construction of this building. Alan's wearing a bunch of hats, so he is a very busy individual. And obviously, as you look at the document, 140 pages, we had a lot of back and forth with him preparing the document and then me reviewing it and giving comments and just truing it up so that we can present a very solid financial statement in hopes that you will receive the GFOA Certificate of Financial Reporting Achievement again.
Well, we commend our staff. Alan has done a wonderful job, and I know Shauna and Leslie. Who else? Alan, do you have anybody else you want to? Tammy?
Tammy's staff all reviewed it as well.
So we commend our staff because I think the good report that we've received is certainly a reflection of our staff and the diligent efforts they have put into this process. So
thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, 4.6, presentation award for the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget. Brett? Is everybody warm in here? It seems really hot. Wow.
Thank you.
I've lost 5 pounds here.
Sorry, Tammy.
Apologize now. Mayor and Council, it's really an honor again to stand before you. Appreciate the comments about staff. As I was sitting there, after getting my emotions rounded up because I knew what the video was supposed to do, do watch it and then cry and then call me and let me know how you feel about it. But with that said, I look around the room and I see our directors, my management team, I call them mine. It's been an honor to assemble this group of people that do so well for your city that you are in reputation for. But tonight I get to honor 2 people. Mayor, you received a letter from Government Finance Officers Association. Always stumble on that. They're located in Chicago. What does that mean to us? We're back here in Harriman, Utah. They review the presentations of all budgets. So I get to stand before you and let you know we received this award again this year. So thank you, Alan, and thank you, Tammy. I'll get to that point why you're involved. Because I know what the efforts that go in from all the directors and managers in this room, but also what they do after they get the numbers. To make where you have a document that we represent, give to you and represent to the residents of Harriman. I know that Coral Lee has taken our budget presentation and give the Unified Fire. Now they have a similar budget process. Tuesday morning, I'm handing our budget to UPD. I'm sorry, not to be mean, what a real budget looks like. With that, Mayor, let me read this. Dear Mayor Freeman, we are pleased to notify Harriman City, Utah, has received a Distinguished Presentation Award for the current budget from Government Finance Officers Association. This award is the highest form of recognition in governmental budgeting and represents the significant achievements by your organization. I'm going to paraphrase. It talks about who is involved in this. And this award is due to the heavy work, call it heavy, because after Alan gets all the numbers from all our departments and puts it into where we can actually start to understand it, and Tammy has to put it in text. Between the two, they go back and forth and put it in text to where the public can understand why numbers drop down or go up, or we have a new line item. So the public can read and understand what we are spending their money on. So with that said, if you've been in the office during that time, Tammy, you're grumpy, and short with us because she has a lot of text review. A lot of work goes into this. In fact, talking to Scott Jurgis at Unified Police Department, he says, I don't have a Tammy like you have to make our text part of the budget come whole. We do have an Alan Ray that has been solid in our budgeting process since he's come on board. What gives me goosebumps, Mayor and Council, is this. The people we're surrounding ourselves with, a new addition with Mike Malloy. We are raising the bar in Harriman, which I was challenged with 4 years ago. Remember that? Raise the bar of our professionalism. So with that, Tammy and Alan, Come receive the certificate, and Mayor and Council, you want to stand with them, get a picture? This is addressed to the two of you. Oh, Alan did this to you.
Sure, we can get somebody else to take a picture.
While they're coming up, I know that we have a very distinguished finance person in the audience other than Robert Wood is Jonathan. Thank you for coming. Jonathan Ward has been Science Bank. He knows how much work goes into these things. It's a lot of work, and we appreciate it.
Commend both of them for the great work they've done. Item 4.7, presentation of resolution appointing planning commission members. I would like to recommend to the council that we continue that item.
Mayor, I will motion to continue Resolution R44 2017 for consideration by the new council in the year 2018 with no date.
Second.
Motion second. We need to vote for that, Jackie, to continue. What's that?
To continue.
Okay, we'll call for the vote then. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. We'll continue that item. Okay, that concludes our reports and presentations. We have now the consent agenda, which has a number of items on there. I'm not going to go through them. Any questions on those before? I just had one question on the phone policy, but is that okay? I didn't notice anything there. This phone policy is relating to employees and UPD having phones. Is that correct? I didn't see anything referencing any inappropriate material on city phones. I know we can't use it. Does that address that, or?
We didn't write it in this policy, but it is in the policy for all of our electronic devices already.
Okay, good. And then I just saw there was just a couple of typos in. It said an employee choosing to purchase, it's got purpose their own phone. I assume that's purchase their own phone.
Yep.
And then I got one down on item 5. It said in the even, I'm assuming in the event, the withdrawal. Got it? Okay. Okay, so any other questions on any of those items? Just for public notice, a number of these items, we have talked and discussed these previously in work meeting, so.
Mayor, I'd like to motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Consent agenda is approved. We'll now have a public hearing for action regarding an amendment to the 2017-18 Harriman City budget. Presentation by staff.
Alan, you're a popular guy tonight, Alan.
Just put all mine on the front end. As we said, this is a budget amendment, public hearing, and request for approval of these budget items.
Do it, Alan. You want me to?
Items we have affect our road impact fees. Last spring, you approved a budget amendment to add $90,000 to the budget to put a Hawk light system over on 5600 West. That didn't get done before the end of the year, so It's in this year instead of last year, so we need to approve that light system. And finally, we've talked about this for a long time now, but we're about ready to put a traffic signal at 134th and 134th South, 64th West. And that'll be $248,650. These two items will come out of traffic impact fees.
I guess there's some construction.
These will be reductions of fund balances. Then we've got some capital projects. We've been awarded a TAP grant, which traffic alternate something, it's for sidewalks. Our grant is for $23,432. We need to put $8,000 of our own money in. So this budget request would increase our revenue by $23,432, increase our expenditures by $31,432, giving a net difference or a reduction of fund balance of $8,000. Also, as requested, a Rocky Mountain Electric has proposed to us building 2 charging stations for electrical vehicles. We're estimating costs and revenue here because they will repay us 75% of our cost of putting the recycling station or the charging station in. We're estimating the revenue will be $30,000. The cost will be $36,000. So it will be a reduction of fund balance of $6,000. We are allowed, though, to charge whatever fee we want for the charging. So I assume that $6,000 will be recouped, but we haven't estimated anything for that at this point. Also, as the mayor mentioned in the work meeting, we did this past week get $1,140,000 from corridor preservation, so we need to budget that revenue. We're also expecting to pay that out this year in property acquisition, so we'll have a revenue and an expenditure for $1,140,000. Any questions?
The question I had, Alan, too, I know on the previous corridor preservation money, we did not use all of the funding that we received. So is that going to be accounted for? That will then go back to the county, or are we just going to get?
Yeah, it's accounted to be spent, but, you know, still an effort to try and get that redirected other places. But yeah, if we have to pay that back, it's already budgeted to be spent this year, so.
So we've received the money yet, Gordon, from the county?
We have not. We've applied for it, and we hope to get it any day now. But there is that amount that we don't need that we're going to try to redirect.
Okay.
But whether we spend it on the property or lose it, it's already budgeted for in our process.
Okay.
Alan, did you say on the Rocky Mountain Power reimbursement for the charging stations, they reimbursed 75%? Then to just double check the math, if the expenditure is $36,000, the recommendation was a reduction in fund balance by $6,000, would it not be $9,000?
Yep.
Okay. Do we need to amend that?
I relied on Wendy's calculation there. Yeah, we ought to adjust that then.
Okay, we'll take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
The auditor taking notes. Is there something?
Yeah, he's sharpening his pencil over there.
Well, as long as you approve it, it don't matter what it says.
Well, I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, if it was 24,000, then the 6 would be 25% of it, right? And she's adding that to make it 30, but then we've got 36. So
if the expenditure is 36, then 25% of the expenditure, if they reimburse 75, you'd have 27,000 reimbursed and need a fund balance reduction of 9.
Okay, this item is on for public hearing, so I'll open for any public comment on this item. You're welcome to come forward.
yes, traffic lights really cost that much.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to close our public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
No, but yes, our public hearing portion is closed.
Any more further discussion among council?
Nope. That's right. Are you ready for a motion on this resolution,
Okay.
Mayor? Okay. Mayor, I will motion to approve Resolution R45-2017, approving an amendment to the 2017-2018 Harriman fiscal year budget with the change to reduce the fund balance for the charging station reimbursement, change the fund balance reduction to $9,000 from $6,000.
Okay, got a motion?
Second.
A second. Any further discussion with council? See none, we'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Item 7.1, discussion and consideration of a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $4.7 million of aggregate principal amount of water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2017 and related matters.
Mayor, this is refunding our water bond 2011 series. We've been watching this for a while, and Jonathan's talked to me about it several times over the last couple of years, and we've been watching to see if we couldn't get a little more savings on this, but our time's run out. So we're at a final point where we either do this or we never see this opportunity again. The proposal as it stands would give us a net present value return of 3.34%. 3% is kind of the threshold for where it makes sense, so it's a little bit over that. We expect to make or save about $140,000 in interest over the remaining 12 years of this bond. The new tax bills that have been passed by both the House and the Senate eliminate the tax deductibility or the tax exemption on advance refunding bonds. And so without tax exemption on these bonds, refunding will not be an option in the future. Plus rates are going up and we're getting closer and closer to the point where refunding won't make any difference. We have used in the city refunding bonds over the last 2 years to save a little over $1 million in interest costs by refunding. But you can't refund a an exempt bond with a non-exempt bond, and unless interest rates are virtually non-existent. So with the change in the tax law that's being done, with the raising interest rates, Jonathan has worked with Bank of Utah, and we've negotiated a rate that will give us the savings that we are hoping for. And but we have to do this in a time period prior to new tax legislation being finalized. Both the House and the Senate have passed bills that eliminate the advance refunding exemption, and their joint committee now has agreed that they're not even going to address it further. So this will be something that this will be the last time we'll probably see this available to us. So with that, we're wanting to move forward by the end of this month to refund this bond and take advantage of what savings there is left in the refunding.
Okay. We need to get that signed by the end of the year, don't we? I think by the 27th or 28th. So, okay.
Yeah, it's got to be done. In fact, the rates have already moved, and Bank of Utah has agreed to keep their commitment that they made.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So it's something that we need to move fairly quickly on, or the opportunity's gone.
Okay. Okay. I think this one needs
Very
a lot of discussion. I think it's straightforward.
Mayor, I'll motion to approve Resolution R46-2017, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $4.7 million aggregate principal amount of water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2017, fixing the maximum aggregate principal amount of the bonds, the maximum number of years over which the bonds may mature, the maximum interest rate which the bonds may bear, and the maximum discount from par at which the bonds may be sold. delegating to certain officers of the issuer the authority to approve the final terms and provisions of the bond with the parameters set forth herein, providing for the publication of a notice of bonds to be issued, providing for the running of a contest period, authorizing and approving the execution of an indenture, a bond purchase agreement, and other documents required in connection therewith, authorizing the taking of all other actions and necessary to the consummation of the transactions contemplated by this resolution and related matters.
Second.
Whoa. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
We love saving money.
Yes. We're into that. We're into good business.
Thank you, Jonathan, for helping with that.
Yes, thanks, Jonathan. Good to see you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to item 7.2. Jared? Well, okay, I guess we'll go forward. Discussion, consideration of an ordinance approving an amendment to the Harriman Business Center Community Reinvestment Project, which we talked about earlier today in our renewal.
This is just the flip side of what you've done in your CDA meeting.
This is pretty straightforward.
Pretty
So I'll
straightforward.
accept a motion on this item.
Motion
Yeah.
to,
Go ahead.
motion to approve ordinance 2017-52, adopting the amended community reinvestment project area plan for the Harriman Business Center project area.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion, a second. Seeing no other discussion, we'll call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Item 7.3, discussion, consideration of a resolution approving the creation of the Harriman City Safety Enforcement Area to provide law enforcement services within the Harriman City. John?
So many months ago, the council directed that we form a service area to provide for law enforcement services, and this is the process that the city does to create that entity. It's not created until we go through about 5 more hoops. If everything goes as planned, we'll have it done before the end of the year. The problem is I got other parties that I'm trying to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. And some of them are elected and they don't really care. But
Because this has to be signed, does it have to be signed by the board? Approved by the UPD board?
no, this is this is our entity.
Right. So, but everything's, from the board perspective, has been done. This is the final piece to put that into action, right? Nay?
No, this is
just our action to create
This is our action to create the entity. Then I have to take it to the lieutenant governor and get
got
them
it.
to
All right,
approve it.
that's-
Then I got to get a document from Utah State Retirement. Then I got to get the surveyor to sign off on it.
But do we
Then I get to
forward
get-
those documents to UPD at all? Nope, has
They
nothing.
do not go to the UPD.
Okay, all right.
All right, I'll accept a motion on this
So
item.
one more thing, attached to that notice of boundary adjustment will be the legal description and the map.
That goes to Lieutenant Governor.
That will go to Lieutenant Governor, but it's also attached to the notice, which is attached to your resolution.
Do we need to make any specific mention of that in the motion, or is the motion sufficient?
It's in
In the
the
document.
notice.
Okay.
I just wanted you to see them. That's the reason I didn't put it in the packet.
We understand.
Okay, I'll accept a motion on this item if you'd like to.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve resolution R47-2017, approving the creation of the Harriman City Safety Enforcement Area to provide law enforcement services within Harriman City.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Call for the vote. Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That's exciting.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Treading new territory now. It's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Item 7.5.
7.4.
Oh, we have 7. Oh, that's right. Excuse me. Discussion and consideration approving a 4th amendment to the interlocal cooperative agreement by public agencies to create a new entity to consolidate law enforcement services and provide rules of governance.
So this is the interlocal that it's an amendment to the interlocal that created the entity, and it's replacing Harriman City with the Harriman City Safety Enforcement Area. And it also does the same thing for Riverton.
Okay.
This was on the UPD board already.
The motion?
Okay.
I'll motion to approve Resolution R48-2017, approving a fourth amendment to the cooperative agreement by public agencies to create a new entity to consolidate law enforcement service and provide rules of governance.
Second.
Okay, can I just ask a question real quick, just before we call for the vote? On one of the items on the resolution, John, under operational effective date, it said, upon the operational effective date, the Riverton Safety Association and ours shall be non-voting members of UPD. What does that mean?
They will not vote on UPD, but the city will vote.
But we'll still have a voice on the board. Yes. That doesn't negate that.
Does not negate that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I will vote yes. That motion carries. Item 7.5, discussion consideration of a text change to the land use ordinance to add a low agricultural density zone. I would like to recommend to council that we continue this item based on the fact that we are now in the 2014 general plan, and to send it, oh, you go ahead. You were going to talk about that too. I'm
Mayor,
sorry,
I will motion to remand this back to the Planning Commission with no date for consideration in concert with a future amendment to the 2014 general plan.
Sorry, I meant to give that to you.
No problem.
Second. Second. Got a motion and second. We'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay, item 7.6.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to also remand this item back to the Planning Commission with no date for consideration in concert with the future amendment to the 2014 general plan.
Second.
Motion is second. Call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Crowley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Okay, everybody's back here? Okay, good. 7.7 is discussion consideration of an ordinance repealing Title 10 Land Use Regulations and Title 11 Subdivision Regulations of the Harriman Code of Ordinances and enacting the new Title 10 Land Development Code of the Code, amending Title 9, Chapter 4, Landscaping of the Code, amending Title 3, Chapter 9, Home Occupations of the Code, and providing transition rules. Bryn?
All right, so here we are.
And this is the one we're going to open the public comment.
Yes.
After a year of working on the new ordinance, we are here to approve it, I hope. So again, just to go through the process, we started this in January. This is to amend our entire zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance. We hired a consultant to help us draft the new chapters. We held several work meetings throughout the year with the council, with the planning commission, joint meetings together. The drafts have been posted on the city website for the last several weeks. The planning commission had a public hearing last week. They made a few changes and then recommended approval, and now you are here tonight to make a decision. And then we'll also just talk a little bit about the transition language that John talked about. So again, the goal was to help the ordinance comply with the state statute and other applicable laws while maintaining the existing ordinance as much as possible. So we didn't change as much substance in the ordinance. A lot of it was formatting, and we'll go through a lot of kind of the changes that we made. So again, reorganized to allow future changes to be made easier without disturbing the entire code structure. Grouped different provisions together because we had several places where it was located in every chapter, so we grouped those together to make that easier. And then again, changed kind of the formatting of the codes. Definitions were grouped together for better convenience. The land uses were defined. Prior to this, we had uses in there that were listed as a conditional use, but there was not a definition of what that use meant. So now we've gone through it and made sure that there is a definition of every use we have listed. Rules of interpretation were added and amplified, and then moved around some of the provisions within the definitions. The procedures, the Chapter 5, as you may know it, we outlined a process for every one of our procedures, for every application type that we have and everything that we do. And it's all in one chapter. It makes it very concise, easy to find which section you are, and all the requirements for whether the city council or the planning commission makes the decision, who the appeal authority is for each decision, and it's very clear in that chapter. And then it goes over again all of the application requirements, how the hearings are noticed, and appeals, and then when those approvals expire. We also added a chapter on non-conforming structures, as far as non-conforming uses and lots, and how those would work. We have a chapter on enforcement, types of violations, and the enforcement of that. Again, kind of change the format of the zones to combine the similar zones into one chapter instead of repeating the same information in each chapter. And then created the land use table, which has been most of the work we've done the last few weeks, is reviewing that table. So it does, I think this will make it a lot easier for staff and for residents or developers looking at it, that instead of having to go to each zone and see whether a grocery store is allowed, you can go to one table, find grocery store, and then see which zones it's allowed in. So it will make it much easier to use. Again, other chapters that have all been updated. The home occupations, we created its own chapter. Landscaping, the landscaping is one that you'll see in your ordinance. It's part of your approval. Landscaping was previously in the building code chapter of the ordinance, so we've moved it into the zoning ordinance now. Some of the home occupation was in the business license chapter, so we've moved that all into one chapter now. So those are a couple of the things in your ordinance that you're also acting on. The sign chapter we cleaned up a lot, and then again incorporated the subdivision ordinance. Previously it was a separate ordinance. We've now combined them into one land development code so that all requirements for development are in the one code now.
Hey, Bryn, could you mention the signs? What we did with the signs?
We did do the signs, yes.
Right, and so the concept is if you have to read the sign to figure out what kind of sign it is, it's unconstitutional. Right. So we tried to comply.
There's no more political signs, for example, in the ordinance. Oh. It's a temporary sign. Mm-hmm. Because if it's a political sign, you'd have to read it to figure out what that means.
Yeah, the Supreme Court a couple years ago came down with a decision. We've just been shaking our heads trying to figure out how to deal with it. So this is what we did.
So these are some of the new kind of in consolidated. Again, we added those first two chapters about purpose, the planning documents. We combined, you can see there are several chapters together. The table of uses is new. All these new end chapters are new. The existing conditions inventory, which requires every application that comes in for a subdivision, for example, to provide an existing conditions inventory of what's currently on the property, what surrounds the property, utilities, canals, all that information. Infrastructure was moved over from the subdivision ordinance. Again, the home occupation chapter is new. Landscaping has now been moved here, and then a new chapter on temporary uses. So again, just a couple of the changes, and we talked about these with the Planning Commission last week. Cell towers, wireless communications facilities. In the current ordinance, we allow them in every zone as long as they are on public property, typically school district property or a utility site. That was missed in this ordinance, so we added that back in this very last draft. Home occupations, if you remember, we reviewed that list of prohibited home occupations at our joint meeting a couple weeks ago. So again, that was added in with those changes. And then the table of uses, we made some changes at the joint meeting, and then the Planning Commission made a few more changes last week. Most of what they did was err on the side of conditional use. So anything that we had a question about, or they wanted to make it a conditional use now, and then their suggestion is, of course, to review this table next year and really go through it again and weed out maybe some of the uses that we don't want and remove those and see if we can also make some more uses permitted instead of conditional moving forward. So this is kind of John's transition language, which basically says if you have submitted a complete application and paid your fees prior to this date, then you can move forward under the old ordinance. Anything new that comes in as of tomorrow will fall under the new ordinance. And again, I've got the language in here about the general plan, the same thing John talked about, just because we had some questions about this at the last meeting. So in the general plan section, it talks about legally, The general plan shall be considered only as an advisory guide. And this again is language from the state. And we can talk about changes in a minute if you want to, but again, this is legally, so legally the general plan is not a binding document like the zoning ordinance is, it is advisory. But we did talk about also how, next one, in the development requirements, it talks about how the application has to be consistent with the general plan. So it also states that when they submit the application, we would review it for consistency with the general plan. And that's all I've got on that, on the entire ordinance. So any questions? Again, the Planning Commission had a public hearing and had no public comments. This has been on the website for several weeks and we haven't received any comments. So I'm open to anything from you. And then
I just had a couple of things, Brent. I was looking through, on Chapter 7, there was a removal sign, and in terms of the percentage the owner would have to, but there's nothing in there in terms of, I can't remember.
An administrative fee. We've still been trying to figure out what that number should be.
Okay.
So,
I thought we had talked about maybe $25, and I can't remember if we
got a
concluded
percentage
on that.
in there, so.
And we don't have to do the percentage. I mean, we could just do $25 for the fee and then leave out the percentage, and I would be fine with that.
I don't know if anyone else remembers discussing that. I thought we just said $25, but I think we were having some language in there to make it subject to staff recommendation or something along that line.
Well, we changed it to may. We may charge a fee.
May,
That
that's
was
what we
the change
did.
that we made. So it doesn't necessarily mean we have to every time, but we may. And then I'm fine if, yeah, it's just $25.
So I don't know if that, we want to bring that up tonight in terms of adding that, or is that, we'll talk about it later.
Well, if we don't have a percentage filled in, then we probably ought to enact the ordinance with something there. So either a percentage, or I would just recommend, and I can add it to my list of amendments to make when we adopt it, that we strike language detailing a percentage and just
Do you know where
change
it's
it to
at?
25%.
It had something with the
Chapter
removal
7.
of the sign or something.
Yeah, it's in 1077.
Okay. But on Chapter 20, it had improvement, completion, assurance, and warranty agreement. I think it's number 10. There, again, there's a percentage there.
In which chapter was that?
20.
Oh.
Nothing noted.
Right, that's on page 6 of that title, number
And I don't know if we discussed what percentage.
10, 20, 17.
This is bonding.
Sub
Yeah.
10. The B.
And I believe the bond, isn't it 10%, John?
10.
Just a retention bond.
Yeah. Or it's just 10%.
And then the other item had Chapter 21. There, it had a note there, add criteria for the fence 1021-7, fencing between incompatible uses. I don't see any criteria
Yes,
there.
and you caught that, and I caught it too. So we talked about the criteria last time to add for topography, for, slopes, and then also for utility sites. So I do have that.
Okay. So
has
It's not in the draft that you have.
It's not in the
Chapter
draft.
21.
Okay, Chapter
21 is
21.
1021-7.
It's on 1021-7.
And we talked about this in the joint
Criteria.
meeting, and I just
Add
missed making
criteria.
that change in the draft.
Okay, so what is the criteria, Mayor? What's the verbiage
Was it
you'd like?
This was, we may require a higher fence or wall. And then again, we added the 2 criteria where it's a slope, if there's topography where it drops, or around a utility site. And so I have added those in the last draft.
Any other additions or comments on that? Yeah, we will. Okay. We're going to have public comment on this item, as we noted before, and I know Emily Herbert has put in a comment form if she'd like to come forward and comment on this issue.
Sorry. I'd like to talk about the proposed changes that we talked about in the work meeting real quick.
Okay.
I just gave them the hard copy on it. There was some dialogue on a couple people that sent on some emails. And so as we had discussed in the work meeting, says, let's see, we proposed a couple of changes in the text on that. And as the new text is what we talked about in the work meeting, it says, new code 10-2-3C provides that the general plan is an advisory guide for growth and development of the land, except as may be specifically provided otherwise in this title, the city code, or by state law. And 10-5-4 provides that no land use application shall be considered unless the approval requested in the application conforms to the intent of the general plan. That's what we talked about in the work meeting, and I wanted to state that and bring that out so we can go into public comment after that.
Okay. And it was, just note, it was consent of the entire council that provision be included. So, all right, we'll go into public comment. Emily, if you'd like to come forward.
Thanks, Emily Burbert. I just wanted to join on the bandwagon and say thank you for all of your efforts to you guys on the city council. And I'm excited to be part of a city that can continue to work with their citizens and that you guys can continue to represent them. I love what Councilman Tishner just said, because that was my biggest concern with these items, is that in taking out certain wording, that you allow the council and the future council to have a little too much flexibility, that it would hinder what's the point of the general plan. And as discussed in the work meeting, that I think the removal of the word intent would be detrimental to the whole idea of the general plan. That our general plan encompasses more than just the zoning, as it seeks to create the vision and the feel for our city, and that it can be the guideline that we need it to be for both citizens and council members. And then, like I said before, that we just want to make sure that there's not too much flexibility and that there's guidelines. I love checks and balances. I love guidelines. I love processes. I think they help everybody stay in check, make everybody make sure that we are all trying to reach the same goal. And so I just ask that you continue to look into that as you are making these decisions and moving forward with these ordinance changes. So thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Good evening. Robert Bradfield. Craig, thank you for sharing this with us on the work meeting that was described. This looks great, and we appreciate your efforts in going forward and looking at this to especially keep that word intent in there. You know, when we started tonight at 7 o'clock, everybody came up and said, you know, how thankful they were for you guys and for being here, and especially Coralie and Craig and for the mayor for the jobs you've done. I wasn't sure if we were in a testimony meeting or if we were at a funeral. But either way, I want to echo that. We appreciate you very much, and Nicole and Jared, of course, as well, for including us in the referendum group, and Brett, John, all of you for the work you guys have done. I just want to bring up intent as, like Emily just noted, two examples. Last night, I noticed that there was an election in the great state of Alabama. In that election, it was the first time they elected a Democratic senator in the last 25 years. That's pretty odd, you know, for that deep South state. However, it was interesting that a lot of the Republican people also voted in this manner, because the intent of those people to have somebody to represent them, it looked like they were willing to sacrifice maybe some of their own personal ideas to have the overall intent be the representative for that particular state. And so I thought, wow, it's an amazing thing that even though it might not have been the person they wanted to win because of the party affiliation, but that they wanted someone that was perhaps beyond reproach to be their representative. And I thought that was pretty amazing that they were able to do that. So I'm going to guide this to you, to Mayor Freeman, that I'm thankful for you for being a man of beyond reproach, and that you've been able to be a mayor for us in our city, Craig and Coralie as well, but in particular to be our leader.
and for Mayor for being this for us for this process that we've gone through together, and also during your time here as the mayor. That means a lot, and we have that intent for Mayor-elect David Watts to be the same way, to step into your very large shoes, to continue on that integrity and that morality of this position. So I found that to be interesting. And so here again, the intent word became very strong. Lastly, on the way over here, my boy, he's 16, he's just been driving for 2 months, scaring me to death. He was over by Smith's at that light over by the apartments, and as he was sitting at that stoplight, his light turned green. A person ran through the red light going south towards the apartment area and T-boned a person that was turning left to go west, very dramatically and very violently. The officers that were there came very quickly and responded, very well to help those people. My son, who watched this, didn't know what to do. So he came home, and I picked him up and said, okay, you take your car, take my car, we're gonna go back. You saw an accident, I want you to be a part of this process. He was working with the officers to make sure that as a eyewitness as to what happened, that he could be a reference to, what had gone on here and what was wrong. And so as I thought about this, as I was coming here, I thought, well, the intent of the person who drove through the red light and could have taken someone's life, thankfully that did not happen, was not to cause harm. But because of bad judgment and maybe moving too fast through things, kind of like as we're going through these processes, things can get lost. And unfortunately, or fortunately, this person didn't lose their life, but as Craig and you have brought to this light of this intent being going forward for our citizens, we didn't want to lose that wording that could have unintended consequences going forward for our city. And so it just made me reflect of what we have going forward. And so even though we're departing and losing 3 very important people in COGS to this community, and we welcome in more coming in, I'm grateful that you guys are seeing this as we are, as important to keep that word intent, to make sure that we see the right things going forward with the community together. And again, thank you for your support, your help, and your service, and for being a part of this process.
Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close that public comment portion on this item. I think we are ready to present a motion. I think, Coralie, if you'll.
Yes, Mayor, I'll motion to approve ordinance number 2017-54, repealing Title 10 Land Use Regulations and Title 11 Subdivision Regulations of the Harriman City Code of Ordinances and enacting new Title 10 Land Development Code, amending Title 9, Chapter 4 Landscaping of the Code, amending Title 3, Chapter 9 Home Occupations of the Code, and providing transition rules with the following adjustments. Item 7.7, amend 10-2-3 to take out shall be considered only as and add the word is before an advisory guide. And this is to adjust the general plan definition to be in compliance with what is in state code. The second adjustment is to amend 10-5-4 to remove is consistent with, and in the same location add conforms to the intent of. And that will be the intent language that's been requested by our residents just previously mentioned. Adjust Chapter 10-77G, removal of of signs. The percentage the owner would have to pay will remove the percentage and change that to just $25 per sign. Chapter 10-20-17B, item 10, will add 10% for the percentage requested there. Chapter 10-21-7 to enable the request for a requirement for higher fence or wall to mitigate topography or slope issues or for utility needs, and will allow deference to the staff, our city attorney and staff, to determine the exact language on that item.
Okay. We have a motion?
Second that.
Did you also want to put December 13th in the blank in the transition rules in the ordinance?
I looked at the ordinance and I think it already said December 14th. It says on or after. Let me double check that I'm looking at the right thing.
I put a blank in there. Did you
Put a blank and I put a date.
Oh, okay. She put a date in. Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
Yep, that works.
Okay,
It
we
does
have a
say
motion.
December 14th because that's tomorrow. So anything on or after that date, as of after the stroke of midnight tonight, will go under the new rules. Is that the intent staff would like to have? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that motion. So any further discussion by council? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
I vote yes. That motion carries. Item 7.8, discussion consideration of ordinance to amend the Harriman City Code, Title 6, Chapter 4, to add a section regarding on-street parking. Bryn?
Thank you for the ordinance. I'm excited.
We're all excited.
This is a change you guys asked at the last work meeting to bring back. So I've got some language for you and we can talk about it. So we talked about trailers, RVs, boats on the street. So this is not in the land use ordinance, so this does not have to go to planning commission before it comes to you. So again, the current ordinance states that no vehicle or trailer can be parked on the street for longer than 24 hours. So the ordinance already says that. So the proposed language, and I looked in several other cities, they all have very, very similar language. The only thing that really differs is the amount of time that they allow, so you can certainly look at that. This states that it's unlawful to park any motorhome, trailer, camper, boat, RV, or trailer of any kind on a public street, basically except for loading or unloading, not to exceed 12 hours. As I said, some of them had 24, some of them had 48 hours, but of course, our ordinance is already gonna limit it to 24 hours. So this would basically be, it can only be on the street if you're loading it, if otherwise, if not, you know, it can't be there, so. You would ask for something like this to come back? Here it is.
The only question I had, Bryn, too, as I looked at the 6-4-8, does it address large working trucks, such as 18-wheelers or construction trucks?
Commercial vehicles are specifically in a different section, or in a different, they're their own category, so they're defined differently.
So they're as illegal as we're identifying here with trailers.
Right,
Same
this would just
verbiage.
be a trailer, an RV, a boat, yeah. More of a personal trailer. Commercial vehicles are defined by weight and, yeah.
The question may be, is it the same 12 hours? Are we trying to give the same restrictions?
To me, I think they are just as critical as a trailer. I mean,
Commercial vehicles, if they meet the requirements for a commercial vehicle, they're not at all. Chief would know more than me, because this is. The commercial, if they meet the rating for the commercial vehicles, they're not at all allowed on the street at all, right? There's not even a time period.
All vehicles are allowed to only be. They can be moved around the block.
well, I'm just concerned if that's going to involve large trucks, construction trucks, because to me, they pose as much, I mean, we've got 12 hours on the trailers, but to me, they pose an equal safety issue as trailers do, in my opinion. And I've seen 18-wheelers on streets, and to me.
And that's a lot of the concern that we've had is, especially people that are running businesses out of their homes, they've got a business trailer that's parked there forever. So I would agree. I'd like to see it be consistent.
I just don't like 24 hours. I mean, 12 hours is stretching it, but 24 is a significant amount of time because safety issues.
Sure, if I understand correctly, you're in agreement with this particular ordinance proposed, but you're recommending the future council take up the issue specific to commercial vehicles and particularly large commercial vehicles. Is that correct?
Yeah, either that or we incorporate that into this. I don't know if you could or not. Maybe it's totally separate issues, but I'm very concerned.
It isn't two totally separate. You know, the commercial vehicles have their own category because it's defined.
I'm just really concerned.
Brent, in the commercial code, I think it's 10,000 pounds GBW.
We agree, Mayor.
And then it says they have to be actively or loading or unloading the vehicle within a 3-hour period. Did we change that?
We've never changed it. I've never changed it.
That's what it used to read, so.
Could I just recommend future council
But
that they
takes the
would?
mayor's concern, takes care of that.
I think Brett's right. All commercial vehicles are not allowed ever on the street except for active loading or unloading. So that's already handled elsewhere. And the reason we want to keep them separate is this is people's personal crafts, personal RVs. We don't want to mix them with those other vehicles that are never allowed. So.
To the mayor's point, though, I think we've had some confusion on this issue. We've recently worked, and I know Chief Carr has worked with a resident that came and petitioned us in a public comment section regarding some concerns that she's had with commercial vehicles, and there was some ambiguity on the term. So perhaps we could ask that that's research determine what the concerns are, why UPD may or may not be able to enforce that uniformly, and what we can do as a council.
If it's a truck they're using for a business, you know, it's going to be, it's not going to fall under the commercial, you know, commercial weight and stuff. So
Right.
we could look at how that's defined.
Thank you.
So on this, just having a trailer of my own and just knowing how the pain it is to load it and stuff. But fortunately, I have a side of the house where I can do that, and which works out great. But however, I got a lot of neighbors that don't really have that room in their driveway to be able to bring it from the storage area and then bring it into their in front of their house where they're going to probably leave the next day or have it there for a couple of days. So I guess this may be a question for the chief of how that would be kind of enforced on something like that, because if they're trying to legitimately trying to get things prepped and prepared, it could take a day or two.
Right, and I think truck that's pulling that trailer, and it could be there, but the trailer itself couldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The commercial vehicle piece is what I'm hearing you asking about, and that's restricted period, if it meets 10,000 pounds. And that definition actually follows very closely the federal definition, I think we're solid with, right? And we, the cities, when I did the commercial, looked at the commercial vehicles of the cities, I think we have a good definition for that. I wouldn't. And the complaint came that there were a lot of people that the idea was that if it was a commercial vehicle or registered without the weight requirement, you start to get into people that have maybe a car that says, you know, commercial vehicle then, right? It's being used for that business. But if it's on the road, I think business. So we kind of dropped back 10 and looked at that and said, really, what are we trying to restrict? The larger commercial vehicles that are in neighborhoods. Sometimes people are forced to bring their car by their employer if they're working on trucks. But it's always been our intent to ticket those parked in different areas. But I don't know where that middle ground. I hear what Councilman Tishner is saying, which is the truck that's pulling it can't be there, or can be there, but the trailer.
Well, it may be more of an enforcement issue. So if somebody's packing to go on a trip and they've got their trailer there and it's there for a day or two, do they have to worry about it being towed away? I guess my feeling on it is most of these things would be handled on a complaint basis, right? It's not like we're actively.
When it comes to, and we get a lot of RVs on the streets because people do come and load them up, and it's hard for us to drive around and know that that vehicle's been there. And the onus of proof would be, did it move during the day when I wasn't on shift, but I came back the next day and it seemed to be in the same location. And to be quite frank with you, most of the time the officer on the road for what we think's been a couple days. Could you?
Right. I do think that this is a very important ordinance, though, because we have had a number of instances in the community where people habitually park their RVs on the street, and then it becomes a safety issue with especially children who may be coming out from behind the vehicle not being able to see the traffic. So I do feel that this is important. You know, if we have an RV, I have an RV, it's not a difficulty to make your plans, get your things ready, and then move your trailer there, pack it up, and go within 12 hours. So I don't see that this is a big issue.
Are we
for the specific, and maybe to council, specifics of true enforcement?
Right.
But for somebody who's,
If it's-
who's causing a problem, it gives us a tool to use.
Right.
So,
That's a fact. And I can see.
We're trying to sleep in it on the road or something.
Right, and one of our, actually, both of our neighboring cities have difficulties with campers being at, let's say, Walmart for
Yes.
a year, and people living in them at Walmart. And then those actually, as they get pushed out, go into streets and neighborhoods. People live in them, but in front of houses that aren't theirs either. So.
Right.
So 12 hours is reasonable, or, I mean, I'm kind of struggling with 12 hours, but.
I like 12
I
hours.
think it is.
Yeah, I'm okay with
We
it.
have seen a problem with this, and when you drive the streets on a regular basis, not just your own neighborhood, when you drive around, and Brendan's been with me, we can count, and no, people's not buying small trailers. They really impact it, and they narrow down the street.
Right.
Which does slow traffic down, but my concern is, you go to Copper Creek, you can't get a fire truck through there if they got an RV on the other side of the street. There's just no way. That's our concern. So if we allow 12 hours in a neighboring city, which is Troy City, they actually do not allow them to have to be actively loading their RV trailer. It's in their front driveway.
Wow.
If they're not, it has to be behind the front of the house. So we're trying to find that middle ground to try to comply. We don't have time to drive all 111 miles of road every day.
Yeah.
And so in reality, it's 12 hours is not, and our approach is always not to impact Troy's people, but to have our code enforcement officer give a warning, tag him, which he's not going to cite him. He's just saying, please
educate,
get off the street. He'll come back again. By that time, then he's going to turn it over to Troy's people, and then they're going to start addressing it, and they're probably going to get a warning.
And 95% of it is voluntary compliance. They do move them.
Right.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
Where we have.
We're not bringing a hammer down. I don't think 12 hours is unrealistic, but, you know, I get it. But we had one gentleman on a 45-foot RV that was resistant to remove it out there by Providence Hall, and it created a problem for traffic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Accept a motion on this item.
A motion to approve ordinance number 2017-55, revising on-street parking requirements.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Call for the vote. Craig?
I'm struggling with this one, no.
Okay, Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes on that item. Motion carries. Item 7.9, discussion, consideration of an ordinance to restrict extended camping in Herman City limits. John? This is an item we've talked about last meeting. So.
Yes, this is requested by the city manager and the UPD. And it prohibits camping in city spaces.
We've had this
Public
issue.
property.
But there'll be some guidelines. I mean, it doesn't totally prohibit it. It's just extended camping. Would that be? I mean, there certainly will be youth groups and others who can camp.
Well, there's some exceptions in there, right?
Always been my
Okay, any questions on that? Again,
we're just trying to get ahead of it because we're having this happen at cities rounds. We're actually having it happen in our foothills now, so this is one we want to get on top of.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, because
Give some
I guess
context.
maybe some question of that is any of that involved with Operation Rio Grande?
Yeah, we have seen some camping happening mostly in an unincorporated area, which is west of us at Butterfield Canyon specifically. Operations up there where we move them back. We are expecting, as some fallout areas, but one of the things that I think we're probably most concerned about is that subcategory to that. I don't know, John, if this fits that, but as we get those types of places here, such as a Walmart, lets them sleep there. Like I mentioned, there are other cities that have had people staying in there. Yes, to answer your question, we've experienced a little bit of the camping up in our, but most of that happens in the unincorporated area. Probably see that move down. We've actually seen some of that from the Rio Grande project occurring under bridges here by Mountain View Corridor. Turning, for sure. We went and took care of it. There is an offer by Highway Patrol that as we encounter these out to manage that. We had an incident at an elementary school. And to thankfully, Jake, our SRO.
The question I had on the resolution, it mentions if someone is violating the provision that they are to be out, it says failure to remove the same for more than 5 minutes. I didn't know if we wanted to do more than 5 minutes. Sometimes that if there's items to get, that may be a little tight. But
you can change that, or you can say 30 seconds if you want. I don't give my kids 5 minutes, but.
Yeah, Salt Lake City has a very similar ordinance, and it is very effective if you have to use something to kind of get them to move along, for sure.
Okay. I'm okay.
Us from being there for an hour.
Right. If they're in the act of complying, it's not like we got a stopwatch going, oh, you didn't make it. Okay.
One observation, we have under the camping exceptions, it indicates for a youth group that there could be no more than 60 people allowed to camp at one time. I'd like to bring up for consideration that we may want to say except by specific approval of the city manager. Rationale for that, or some other body if you'd like to make a recommendation. The reason for that is we had an event here about 4 years ago. We had a number of scouts that gathered at Butterfield Park for the Jamboree on the Air event. And it was citywide. And so we had, I don't remember the exact number, but 200-300 scouts there. I think we'd like to facilitate that in special exception cases.
You got to write something in there to, as permitted, because I do see us, and you know I have vision and goals that as we buy the mountain to allow some camping in certain areas. And you know, some road trips to talk about that too. So maybe we need to tweak a little bit to allow by permitted use.
What if we just,
Don't look at me.
what if we adopt it except by approval of the city manager or designee, and then you can amend it later?
Yeah, and what I would do, I will probably create maps that would be, where it would be permitted, and vet that out with planning and bring it back to council.
Yeah, maybe take it in 2 pieces, make an exception for over 60 people, and then deal with the camping in the ACUB area at a later date.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Who would like to make that motion?
I will motion to approve ordinance number 2017-56, amending Title 7 of the Harriman Code of Ordinances regarding camping on public grounds, streets, parks, and playgrounds, amending item G to indicate no more than 60 people shall be allowed to camp at one time unless specifically approved by the city manager or designee, and identifying that ACUB camping areas will be considered in the future. Will allow some staff modification to the language as necessary.
Okay. Got a motion?
Second. Can I make one other suggestion? Maybe the city manager could waive the bonds too.
And I will further amend that the city manager may waive the bonds.
Second. Okay, we have a motion second. Let's call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Item 710, discussion consideration of ordinance amending a sign development agreement for a sign located at 14199 South, 4800 West with Real Salt Lake Training Academy. John?
Gordon's going to do this.
Gordon.
I can't believe Gordon put you on this late in the agenda.
We love these guys. So, as you know, they're moving forward very quickly with the construction.
You want to come up and?
I'm gonna be both on TV.
I was gonna continue it now that you.
We were gonna put it at the very last of the agenda, then continue it. Just kidding.
We can abuse Craig all day long, he loves it. No. They're moving forward very quickly with the construction of the stadium, all 8 fields, the big indoor facility, and they recently had the announcement of the women's team that they'll be practicing here. This is where their stationing will be for all their training. And so we're really excited what's happening, the announcements and how it's going forward. One of the things they want to do, click to the next picture. They want to build an entry sign on premise. This is going to be kind of the gateway sign. It's almost 19 feet tall. And because of the scope and size of this thing, you understand it's 45 acres. It has the largest indoor unsupported. This really adds to, go to the next picture, kind of see just the grand look of it. We think it's great and keep them on schedule. We've amended the development agreement, which requires the city council to approve that for them to move forward with this design. I think we have one more picture.
Or that shows the, yeah.
So just kind of the entrance as you come up, you see the stadium in the back and the school and then the indoor facilities over there. So.
And it will be a backlit sign?
Go back to the night sign, that was kind of cool.
So now, I know we talked about some time ago that we were gonna put some identity of Harriman on it.
I think it does on the bottom.
didn't
Go back
see
to
it.
that other picture. Oh, no, I didn't. I thought that was the sign, that was the sign in the Mountain View.
Those are the
Yeah, that
ones
was
on
those,
the,
but I didn't know if we'd talked, well, we may have not talked about these ones specifically, but.
Obviously, on the Mountain View Quarter signs, we've talked.
Yeah, that's right, because I remember on the other signs that you were gonna put those on there, but on these ones,
It might look good just below the shield there, just doing the H in the mountains. Just saying.
I don't know. I mean, it's not a deal breaker.
I like our heavy
by all
branding, you
means,
know
but.
that.
But I'm perfectly okay with that.
This
Still
might be
look
good for the
classy.
city, you know.
Good suggestion.
I think it's good thought, Craig.
Okay. Not a deal breaker. I mean, if you're okay with it, then.
Mitch draws up something.
Okay.
All you guys have done and the support that you've shown.
Next time we'll move him up on the agenda, not
We talked, again, this is an item we've talked about in previous meetings, so I think we're ready to go unless anyone.
I'll be ready to make a motion. No. Make a motion to approve ordinance number 2017-57, approving the First Amendment of the Sign Development Agreement with Real Salt Lake Training Academy.
I'll second.
Do you want to add that, the logo, or not?
we'll take his word for it.
Yeah, we'll just.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, motion second. Call for the vote. Craig?
Yes.
Curly?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Thank you. That motion carried.
I'd be remiss if I walked out here and didn't echo everybody else. Thank you for your public service.
We really appreciate Real, and I know you've been very cooperative and willing to work, and so thank you. Excited for what's coming.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Greg.
See ya.
Bye, Craig.
Item 711, discussion consideration of a resolution approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Salt Lake County for the installation of a traffic signal located at 13400 South, 6400 West. Blake?
Guess somebody has to go last, so it's me. This is just the interlocal agreement for the signal that was approved in the budget opening earlier. You'll notice that this agreement is for $50,000 less than the budget. There is some property acquisition and stuff that the budget included, but this is the interlocal so the county can install the signal at 134th and 64th. And recommend approval for that. It's much needed.
I don't think there's any discussion on this, but unless anyone has,
This is exciting. I'm glad to get this light in. I'm sure
Yes,
people
this is
up
a good
there will
thing.
be very appreciative of it.
Motion to approve resolution number R49-2017, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Salt Lake County for the installation of traffic signal at 13400 South, 6400 West.
Second.
Motion is second. Corley?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion carries. The final item tonight, 7.12, discussion consideration of a resolution approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Salt Lake County for the installation of a traffic signal located at Anthem Park and Main Street. Blake?
So another signal. This one was actually included in the budget for Main Street Segment 1, which is constructed right now. We're getting ready to construct Main Street Segment 3, which is the north segment going towards South Jordan. And as the commercial development takes place in there, this signal is needed for that. So same recommendation, approve this one so we can have it in place in advance of the commercial development.
I was just going to mention right now, people may wonder, why are we putting a light? There's nothing there, but we're anticipating a lot of activity that's going to go on there with commercial development, and it's good to get on top of it, and I appreciate you, Blake, doing that. We'll definitely need a light there, so thank you for your looking ahead on that issue. So,
Mayor, I'll motion to approve Resolution R50, 2017, approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Salt Lake County for the installation of a traffic signal at Anthem Park Boulevard and Harriman Main Street.
got a motion?
Second.
And a second. Call for the vote. Jared?
Yes.
Corley?
Yes.
Craig?
My last vote, yes.
And I will vote yes. That motion carries.
Mayor, I got two comments to make, if I can. One, thanks Jay Zakowski, Chief, for coming and joining us tonight. He started out here a long time ago with us, I helped with our liaison work.
I was asking if his name was Spanish, and he said, no, it's German.
And number two, Monday we have a luncheon here to meet with our council and mayor who's leaving office, give our employees a chance to say goodbye to you. And that'll be at noon, so those who want to attend. I've had a lot of outreach by employees, so I hope you all make it because they're pretty emotional about seeing you go. You've had a huge impact upon the city, and we're not going to start crying now. Save that for later. But you've done a fantastic job, and we'll do that Monday, okay?
Thanks, Brett. Just calendar items. January 2nd will be the newly elected officials' oath of office ceremony at 6 o'clock. It's not required that the city council be here. I will be planning on attending and conducting that meeting. So that'll be a great day for those just newly elected. December 25th, obviously Christmas Day, and the offices will be closed on the 25th and 26th. This is it, closing comments. If I could just take a minute, and I want to express appreciation to my wife. It's these positions that we occupy certainly have, you have to have a very supportive spouse, a very supportive family, and I want to just publicly thank my dear wife for her constant and endearing support and love and appreciation for what we've done and gone through. And want to thank staff, and we'll have opportunity to do that on the 18th, but just want to publicly thank them. And I want to express appreciation and deep love and appreciation to all the city council that I've been fortunate to work with. We've not always agreed on, and that's always, some ways it's always healthy to have various points of view on issues, but we've always been able to maintain a high level of respect for those opinions, and I just want to tell everyone how much I love you, and I do really appreciate you. And I saw Mike Day at the lighting, and I says, Mike, you look so great. And he says, yeah, I got out of the city council. Yeah, he looked wonderful. He says his health's improving, and Matt Robinson as well. But just love each of you and appreciate you, and it's been really an honor and a privilege to serve, and to you've each taught me great lessons that I'm going to take with me, that learning moments. I've often said as we seek opportunities to serve, our circle of friends always increases. And I have made a lot of friends in the last 4 years, sitting close to several of you, and just love you and appreciate you and wish only the very best for all of you.
Yeah, I just wanted to publicly make a comment in regards to my wife and my 3 boys. I know she's not listening right now, so it's okay. But the love and support that I've received from my friends and families and neighbors and colleagues has just been an outpouring of love and support for me, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I asked my wife if I should run a 3rd term. She just kind of looked at me, and I could see the look in her eye like, okay, go for it. But then after I told her I didn't want to run a 3rd term, I could see some relief in her. So if she happens to be listening, just want her to know how much I love her and appreciate her support and everything she's done for me and for my 3 boys. I'm coming home.
Well, well said by both of you. I think the unsung heroes in public service are our spouses and our families. They do so much. Last night I missed my 2 middle school children's band concert, and tonight I'm missing my Harriman High School child's band concert. And they do a lot without us, and we are so privileged for the opportunity to serve, but our service is only because our families serve along with us, and they're the unsung heroes here. So I'll pay tribute to my husband, Corey, my children who, when I started, my youngest was in kindergarten, and now she's in 6th grade, and so she knows nothing other than me serving, and it's just been such an honor and privilege. I really have appreciated the opportunity to work with the staff. We have incredible people that work here who are also unsung heroes in many regards. They do so much. They work late hours. We'll get email exchanges at midnight, 1 or 2 in the morning, and it's not uncommon. I'm the worst offender. I'll send something at midnight, and I'll get a reply from someone, and I'm thinking, don't reply, go to bed. But so they're really phenomenal. We just are so fortunate to have such a gifted staff that we work with. And I've developed such an appreciation, respect for all they do, and their families also sacrifice many hours. I think we have a lot of people that support us in other capacities in districts, our Unified Fire and our Unified Police, Wasatch Front Waste, the Sewer District. I'm going to leave someone out. I'm concerned about that. Mosquito Abatement, Legislative Policy Committee on Utah League of Cities and Towns, COG, Wasatch Front Regional Council, Camp Williams. We could go on and on. We get to associate with phenomenal people. I'm so excited for the new mayor and council to have those opportunities as well. Our Planning Commission, they endure a lot from the public in misunderstandings because of ordinances that we adopt. They have the responsibility to administer those ordinances, and they are placed in a very difficult position. I have the highest respect for them and the job that they do to make good decisions based on sometimes some uncertainty that we create as a council. So working alongside them, I've just been so honored to see them rise to that public service. Friends, there are so many friends that I think support each of us that will go and gripe to when we've had a rough council meeting or we've been slandered on Facebook for the umpteen millionth time. So for those that have been in our corner and have had our backs and given us chocolate, in my case, for all the rough meetings, I so appreciate all of the love and support. And to my peers on the city council, I'm just so grateful for you. Mayor, you said it so well that we've been blessed to serve together. We haven't always agreed, but we've been able, I think, through the mayor's influence to maintain that respect and decorum, and sometimes not, but we've tried to apologize to each other and move along and become friends in this process. So it's been an honor to serve, and I wish the new council and mayor the very best and hope that you have a singular opportunity as I have had.
Thank you. I just have to say thank you. You guys are great examples. I've learned a lot. And now I find myself in just realizing now.
You're the senior.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm used to saying thanks for your patience and me learning the ropes, and I'm going to have to try to fill those big shoes. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it had to come to an end sometime.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
midnight, you know?
No legal update, what's wrong with us?
Yeah. I know, I got too much, I was.
Said I'm not gonna say my goodbyes to any of you guys, because I'll do that on Monday. All right.
They're only worried about two. Us and them to progress. They said that they didn't wait.
I will totally get it with you.
I'm so sorry that I'll be working.
I hear such great things. I'm so glad you're on board and you're going to be well respected by this new
It'd be nice to come home. Yeah, by all means.
You can still work at the temple tonight, though. I'm so glad that we did.
What time though?
Well, our shifts will all change because during the first afternoon, so we don't until like 6 o'clock.
You'll make it. I'll make it. Are you gonna do Wednesday?
For
For your temple?
I can't.